What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. And in today's video, we're going to be doing a CK3, Crusader Kings 3 video on the channel. And we're going to be talking about a no-nonsense guide to getting started in Crusader Kings 3. Have you ever thought about trying this game, or you have tried out this game and the skill gap, the learning curve is just too wide for you as a beginner? That's the exact position that I found myself in whenever I started this game, and I've been able to get to this point right here, where on an Iron Man save, I am capable of conquering the entire map pretty much at this point, and I'm still going, of course, but I'm able to do all of this and manage the game properly. I have 150k in the bank. I've been continuing my dynasty from the 800s all the way up through the 1300s, and I've been able to do it successfully with just a few basic concepts that I'm going to give you guys today that are going to help you out tremendously in the long run as a beginner, from a beginner on Crusader Kings 3. Now, in order to give you a little bit of background about this, I want to show you guys what we're working with as a user here on Crusader Kings 3 within this Iron Man mode. Whenever I press escape, you can see it's Iron Man mode enabled, and I've earned a lot of achievements through this save alone. I mean, most of the achievements that I've earned, in fact, have been through this save alone. You can see achievements enabled. So that's how you guys know that I'm playing this game straight up, and I've been able to accomplish all of this without too much trouble, to be honest with you. It's just a lot of time and dedication to get to a point like this, but I'm sure some of you guys have trouble getting to a point like this, just being able to capture part of a kingdom, let alone having many kingdom titles, being able to reestablish the Roman Empire, being able to expand that far and beyond. And like I said, there's a few simple things that from a beginner I had to find out on my own, despite all the videos that I watched, because the videos out there are from experienced players. They don't understand the position of a new player coming into Crusader Kings and needing to know what you need to know basics-wise. And to just talk about that a little bit further before we dive into the video, I want to show you guys just a little bit more evidence. I want to show you my dynasty, for example. 4,200 living members, 144 houses included within my dynasty. When I open up the dynasty tree, I am literally at risk of potentially breaking the game because of how many dynasty members there are actually in this dynasty. This is just one level very far down. I could keep expanding this all the way to the top, to the beginning where I started my dynasty, and it would probably break the game. So my very first tip for you guys is going to be with creating your character, or character selection, at the beginning of a new game. This is going to be where most of your important decisions are made that are going to set you up for success in the long run. The first thing that I want you guys to try is creating your own ruler. Yeah, you can certainly take over for one of the predetermined characters, but that may limit you in your ability to set yourself up for success. Instead, there are a couple of things that you can do creating your own character that are going to set you up for an easy start to the game. And the way that I was able to establish that Roman Empire was a couple of small details at the beginning of the game that are incredibly important. One of those details being, set yourself up for a vassalage to a superior liege. I started as a vassal within the Byzantine Empire. Now, why is that so important? Well, guys, when you start off as a vassal like I did in this county here within the Byzantine Empire, what that allows you to do, and one of the biggest problems that you'll face, is it's going to allow you to not be declared on by other factions within the game outside of that existing empire. So if somebody wanted to declare war on me as that little faction within the Byzantine Empire, if they are outside of the Byzantine Empire, they would have to declare war on the Byzantine Empire in order to come claim my territory. So that's going to set you up with a more powerful ally that's going to prevent you from getting declared on. One of the biggest mistakes that I made starting out this game, and I know that my friends have made starting out this game, is trying to pick a very small territory, because that's what you want to do. You want to start from the ground and build up all the way to a kingdom or an empire. Well, the game is coded in a way that these bigger factions are just going to declare war on you and steamroll you very early on. So you either need to start as a vassal of a more superior nation, a kingdom, an empire within the game, to prevent yourself from being declared on and wiped out early in the game, which, trust me, is one of the most common and most frustrating ways to end a game within Crusader Kings. Or you need to start out in a territory that has a bunch of small factions so that none of them can just declare war on you and steamroll you early. Places like Ireland, where the tutorial starts you out, are actually one of the more favorable places to start, because you have a bunch of small factions. None of them are going to have the military power to be able to take you out right away, and that is the number one tip that I can give you guys, is to start as a vassal and don't try to declare independence too quickly, and don't try to usurp the title of the empire very quickly, because ultimately you need to have a plan in place to be able to support that type of an empire, that type of size. And if you don't have that established early on, you're going to get declared on by other places, you're going to have factions created against you, and it's going to be a miserable time. Trust me, I did this entire thing where I started as a county within the Byzantine Empire a dozen times before I got it right and expanded until I got that giant Roman Empire. And that was because I kept trying to take over the Byzantine Empire too soon, or I tried to break away too soon, and then Bulgaria would declare war on me, or someone over here would declare war on me. Just don't do it. Save yourself the trouble. Now, the next tip that I can give you here is actually also map related and starting location related. And again, a lot of the videos that I've watched didn't talk about this stuff, and these are incredibly useful tips for you guys to know. And this one is going to be a location related one, which is setting yourself up to not have as many enemies around you as possible. So for example, you could start off over here in the middle of Europe and you have enemies on all sides. You have people that are looking to take your territory on all sides. Ultimately, if you fall within a kingdom, for example, if you started off as one of these little counties in Poland, someone's going to try to form the Kingdom of Poland. Somebody's going to try to form the empire of the Baltic Empire, West Slavia, Germania, Scandinavia, all of those things, and therefore they're going to look to attack you. So prevent yourself from having as many enemies around you as possible. One of the ways to do that is to start off as a coastal region, to start off on an island, or to start off in a corner of the map. Yes, it is going to be a little bit cheesy, it's kind of newbie to do it, but this is a noob giving you helpful tips to get your experience up. Do you want to have a miserable game? No, you don't. You want to get better at the game, so give yourself an easy way to start the game early. You'll be able to achieve some achievements, you'll be able to get your skill level up, but one of my favorite spots to start is East Kilt, for example, because you only have two direct neighbors here. You have nobody to the north, nobody to the east, and that's pretty hard to come by, and you have a lot of small, relatively small neighbors that you can go and conquer without too much trouble. So you don't have a whole lot of enemies that are going to be coming around declaring war on you. You're starting off essentially in a corner, you're corner camping per se, and you're going to set yourself up for the least amount of enemies coming for your throat as possible. One little asterisk that I want to put in there is you might think, okay, well then why don't I start as an island nation, like in Sicily, Sardinia, or Majorca, or something of that nature, and those are potentially viable, or Iceland. The problem with those are going to be that you're going to have to use a lot of gold to transport your units across the sea if you want to conquer somebody. So that becomes a problem, especially in the early game where gold can be pretty hard to come by and you're just trying to build up your settlements that you already have existing. So trying to send armies from this corner of the map even down into these islands and into England and things like that can be incredibly expensive. So while I say start in a corner of the map, try to isolate yourself a little bit from as many enemies as you can, you certainly want to be aware of the fact that in order to traverse the seas, you're going to need gold for that. So you don't necessarily want to isolate yourself completely, or you might have a rough time trying to expand. And my last point on location here is something I already addressed earlier in the video, and that is starting around other territories that are of similar or smaller size that you're going to be able to conquer. So East Kilt, for example, I talked about, has these other similar sized nations next to it. They look bigger than they really are because it's a lot of territory for one individual county, so they are relatively easy to capture, whereas you also have other places like Ireland that we talked about that has a lot of little individual places to be able to capture. You can start off in a corner, for example, but you might set yourself up for failure if you start off in a corner and you have nobody to declare war on and nobody to be able to conquer. If you start off in the middle of West Francia, for example, you have Lotharingia to your east, and you have all of these places in Spain that are larger. Brittany is kind of big. You're not really going to have a lot of opportunities to expand here, not easy opportunities to expand. You would be forced to fight the other vassals within this empire in order to be able to expand yourself and get yourself to a point of being able to take over that empire or something of that nature. Whereas if you started in an Ireland, you have easy places to take over. If you start in the Byzantine Empire, which is why I like this as my favorite starting point right here, you have all of these small territories up this coastline to be able to take over. You have some small territories over here in the boot of Italy to be able to take over. The Hafsid Empire is not part of the Byzantine Empire, which you can eventually try to expand to. And a lot of times the Kingdom of Bulgaria here ends up splitting up into various different territories, and you'll be able to grab some land off of them. So this is a very good place to start because you start as a vassal. You have a very mighty protector in the Byzantine Empire, but you also have all of these nice little areas you can expand to help build up your reputation and your wealth and your civilization. Okay, so what's up next then? Well, what's up next is creating your own ruler, and this is going to be a major important factor in what you do within Crusader Kings because it's going to help you out in the long run if you pick a couple of certain traits that are going to help you out. Well, in a lot of other videos, they talk about not wanting to have a lot of children because having a lot of children creates a lot of people that can inherit your titles and contest your titles and things like that. Yeah, that's a pretty good tip to know, but I'm not going to address that right now. Instead, I want to address having good characters that are going to be able to successfully lead your lands. My recommended starting point here is roughly 16 to 18 years old. I typically go with a 16-year-old leader because that brings your customization points down to start and allows you a little bit more flexibility. And the number one trait that you're going to want to utilize is the genius trait. And the reason for that is that this is an inheritable trait. You can pass this trait on to your descendants. So this is where things get a little bit wonky. People don't, starting out this game, realize what your personality traits and other traits are going to do for you. The important thing I want you to take away here is that traits like genius, Herculean, and beautiful, as well as fecund, strong, and shrewd, are potentially inheritable to your children, which means that they can be passed along. So the big mistake here that I made, and I guarantee you a lot of you that have watched this video have made, is you made a character that was all awesome at everything you wanted, and then you got to a point where your heir took over and they stunk. They are a horrible character. They don't have any good traits or anything like that, and that is the worst thing that you can do. So ultimately, you want to set yourself up, I know this sounds weird, for a breeding program, essentially, where you're able to pass on the best traits possible. So you're going to pick the genius trait as the number one thing that you utilize here, and then you're going to fill in the gaps. I generally recommend to increase your stewardship as much as possible. There's a couple of different ways to do that. The genius trait, being able to pass that on to your children, is going to give them plus +5 to every single category, which is going to make your heirs better. As long as you're passing that along to your children, that's going to be extremely useful in the long run, and you're going to continually have great characters to take over your empire. And then typically I will start off with my education trait in the stewardship lifestyle, somewhere in the wastrel, thrifty cleric, fortune builder type of tier, and get myself a point where I have additional stewardship to start off, and it's going to give me additional stewardship lifestyle experience, which is going to help me earn more money, have bigger levies, leverage the lands that I have to make them as useful as I possibly can, which is going to be, in my personal recommendation, the best way to start off to set yourself up for success. And then there's a couple other traits here that I want you to consider picking up from the start, which would be avaricious, which is going to give you additional holding taxes and additional stewardship. Can't argue with that. Administrator, which is going to give you additional vassal opinion, additional stewardship, and additional diplomacy. The vassal opinion is important because you want your vassals to not try to declare war against you and separate from you. And architect is a good one as well because it helps with your building costs, your construction time, which is going to help you make your lands better, quicker. And overseer, which is going to give you additional martial stewardship and control growth. So anytime you take over a new territory, you're going to establish control over that territory at a 50% faster rate. Now, the next tip that I have for you is about marriage. You may be tempted to click this button right here and start married or start with children. Trust me, you don't want to do that. Like we talked about, we want to pass on this genius trait as quickly as possible, and that is going to be a key in the start of your CK3 adventures. The first thing that you want to do is select the marriage option and try to find a character that's going to help you pass along traits. The best way to do this is hit this little search button, go down to traits, and select inheritable. This is going to show every character that has inheritable traits within your realm of influence. I'm particularly looking for somebody with a trait in the intelligence tree, such as quick, or as we have, the genius trait. One of the things that you can do is you can actually search for characters that have the genius trait. And right here, there's a 31-year-old character with the genius trait. If we click on them, we would have a medium chance of children. And if we do have children with this spouse, we will inherit the genius trait. The reason for this is that both parents, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, have this trait, therefore it will be inherited. The next thing that you're going to want to do at the very beginning of the game is search for a physician. This is going to recruit physician candidates that are going to help you if you fall ill or anything like that, and you want to be able to find a character that is going to be useful to you. We'll want to choose our lifestyle focus. I generally go with the wealth lifestyle to get money flowing quicker earlier on so I can improve these lands, and that leads us directly into the next tip. While I might go directly after an opponent here and try to expand early on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take any money that I earn and utilize that money to be able to expand upon what I already have. I'm going to try to develop these lands with the best possible options. And the best possible options for you guys to expand with would be walls and tower, which are going to give you additional taxes and an additional garrison and fort level in those territories. Farms and fields are pretty good. Hunting grounds are a good starting point because they only cost 100 gold, but they still give you the 0.2 to your monthly taxes. And trade ports, those are all going to expand your wealth exponentially over time, and that will start to snowball if you continue to focus on your lands and build them up to a proper point. And my final tip for you guys before you start expanding and all of that stuff, and we'll potentially make another video if you guys want to see the next steps in the process here, is to make sure you start a personal scheme against your spouse to seduce them or romance them. This is going to give you a high probability of giving you a child. What ends up happening at the end of this most of the time is you end up with a child on the way. And so I always start off with the seduce scheme in order to try to present an heir as quickly as possible. And so I personally want to start right away to make sure that I at least pass on that genius trait to somebody, and I have a somewhat useful character to be able to take over in case I fall ill, I am schemed against by somebody else, or anything that could potentially result in my territory being passed on to somebody else. Trust me, me, there's not a whole lot more that you need to know beyond those beginning tips, and those are, in my opinion, by far the most important things to set yourself up for success, and that's going to help you learn this game and get better at this game while not presenting the hardest challenge in the world. And I know that I'm talking about this on Iron Man mode, but who wants to put all this time into a game and not earn a couple of achievements for it? So I do hope that you guys found some information in this video useful, and if you did find this information useful, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for potentially more content on CK3, and leave a comment down below if there's anything else that you would like me to present some tips and tricks on, because like I said, at this point I've now put so many hours into this game and I feel like I am pretty well versed in what you need to know, and a lot of the guides out there, to be honest with you, are not coming from a beginner's perspective, which is, I think, what people need to know and the information that people need to know in order to start off this game in a positive way and not waste a bunch of their time. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.